Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to highlight another region that we haven't seen yet so far this year, and that is the South Africa region. Now, by the time this video goes up on my YouTube channel, we've actually already played two cases from this region. Right now we're actually right in the middle of a very heavy season with a lot of regional competitions. We have the world competitions, so some of these videos might go up a bit later than the actual competition. This case is a fun one. It's called It's You and CO₂, and let me go ahead and read the introduction for you. Your company wants to improve its public image by reducing carbon emissions. They have asked you to quantify the CO₂ emissions for their business travel in working towards that goal. The carbon factors emitted per unit can be found on the carbon factors sheet, and that is this sheet right here. The distance between two airports when traveling by air can be found on the route data tab, which is this one right here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that here a bit better. So we have from airport to airport, the distance in kilometers. You can assume that the distance of travel in both directions, i.e. from one airport to the other and vice versa, is the same. All right, so as you can see on my scoreboard, this level only has 5 levels and 5 bonuses, but yet still a 1,250 point total. Now, when I did this competition live, I actually did pretty good. I made one small mistake, one small rounding error, and that small rounding error kept me from second place. So I'm hoping today when I do this case, I won't have any problems at all. But with that being said, let's go ahead and give this another shot, and here we go. Level 1 asks us to calculate the CO₂ emissions in kilograms for the following stays at a hotel in a nearby city by our employees. And so what you're going to see me do here is, because this CO₂ factor is a flat rate for hotel stays, what's really tricky is trying to calculate the number of days that they stayed. I use the days function because that tells you the difference between two dates, but I'm always very cautious because I can never remember if it is inclusive of the end date or not. In this case it's not, so simply multiplying that by the factor will get us the answers. Now level 2 asks us to calculate the CO₂ emissions for vehicle travel depending on the fuel type used. And so the main difference here is that instead of a fixed factor, now it's going to change depending on what the vehicle type is. So I'm going to XLOOKUP that factor. Once I get it, I can simply multiply it by the number of kilometers traveled. Now, one thing I need to start being careful of is that the answer needs to be rounded to 2 decimals. So at the end, I'm going to wrap all of this around in a round function to get the correct answer for this level. Level 3 asks us to calculate the air travel CO₂ emissions in kilograms between the following airports, assuming economy class is booked. And so the big difference here is that we need to figure out if it's a short haul, medium haul, or long haul flight. And you'll see here in the first hint that short haul is below 470 kilometers, long haul is above 3,700 kilometers, and medium haul is between those two distances. Another tricky part is that the departure and arrival airport may not be in the same order as it is on the route data sheet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an if-error statement. So basically, I'm going to XLOOKUP these airports in the order that they're given me. If it is not there, look up the same airports in reverse order and then bring back the distance. Once I get the distance, I can use a formula to concatenate a bunch of strings together. We know we're going to start with air first. I'm going to start with air. Then I'm going to use a formula to determine if it's a short, medium, or long haul flight. And in the end, since we're assuming that economy class is booked, I'm just going to write economy class at the very end of it. That is the text which I can use to look up the CO₂ factor, multiply that by the distance, and that will get me the answers to level 3. Now level 4 asks us to consider the travel class. So we're not given airport names, we are given the routing distance and the codes. That's pretty easy to handle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to XLOOK the codes in the table using that slash in the middle. Once again, wrap that in an if-error statement so that if the codes are backwards, I need to look up the reverse codes. That will get me the distance between the two airports. Now, once again, I need to concatenate the text to determine not only whether it's long, medium, or short haul, but also include the travel class into that concatenation. That's going to be a pretty straightforward insertion into my formula, and then I can use that, find the CO2 factor, multiply it by the distance to get the answers for this level. And finally, level 5. Now we're taking multiple city routes and it asks us to calculate the total CO2 emissions amongst all of these routes. So one of the tricky things might be, how do we find out each individual flight along the route? Well, for me, I did a combination of text split and drop. I'm text splitting based on the slash that you see here. So what you'll see me do is in the from and to columns, I'm going to text split on the slash. That should give me 4 airports for the example. But then I'm going to drop that last airport because I'm working on the airports that I'm flying from. And since this is a 3-flight route, I'm only flying from the first 3 airports in this routing. In the to column, then I'm going to drop the first route because I'm not flying to Johannesburg in the first flight, for example. I'm going to fly Johannesburg to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam to Johannesburg. And so that is how I am going to differentiate my flights. And in this level, because there are different numbers of flights, what I am going to do here is I am going to use dynamic arrays to then calculate the distances, the factors between them, and the total CO2 emissions from each flight. Now, what you're going to see is I'm going to get tripped up on a couple of things. First, I'm going to get tripped up on the fact that for short haul flights, first and business class are listed actually on the same line. So my concatenated text will not look up that CO2 factor. I'm going to add those two separately as rows below. And then as I'm running through the data, I'm going to run into another case where the economy plus class is not listed on a short haul flight. And we'll see in the instructions that it says the economy plus factor is not available with short haul flights. Assume normal economy class is flown for that leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another row to that table, basically economy plus short haul, but I'm going to use the economy factor for that leg. Once I get all of those figured, I then add them all up. Make sure to round it to only 2 decimals. That will give me the answers for this level. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bonuses. Bonus A, what is the distance of the longest air route listed on the Route Data tab? This is very straightforward. We have all the distances, find the maximum distance. Bonus B, in level 1, how many nights is the longest stay? Now, what I did for this one, because in my original formula I didn't actually keep the dates as a separate value, so I'm going to use that days formula again to find all the days in all the stays and then find the maximum of those numbers. Bonus C, what is the airport code of the airport with the least amount of connections listed on the Route Data tab? The easy way to find the most and the least of something is to use the group by function. And so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to stack the from codes and the to codes together. I am going to then use the group by function on that stack. And I'm basically going to say count how many times each airport is listed within that stack. Sort it by the number of times that is listed. That should then put the airport used the least on the top. Bonus D, how many overlapping nights are there in level 1 hotel data? So what this is asking is, between all the nights that are stayed, how many nights are stayed multiple times? And so what I did here was I had to do this on another sheet. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to list out all the dates that were stayed overnight in all of the games. So for all 20 games, for example, we see on the game number 1, we stayed from May 5th to May 6th. That's only one night. That should be the May 5th night. I'm going to do this by using a sequence formula. So basically I'm going to say using a sequence of the number of nights, starting at 0 because I'm going to start on that first night, right? I don't want to add that night to it. But then as I go through all the levels, this should then give me the list of all the nights that were stayed. Now, once I have that, I can compare it against all the nights in the year and basically count up how many of each date in that year were counted in those lists of nights that I've done earlier. And finally, bonus E, what is the distance of the longest route in level 5? Now, fortunately, my model in level 5, I did it step by step. All the steps were showing, including the distances for each flight. So it was very easy. I just changed my formula in the data table from the total CO2 emissions to the total distance, add them up together, and then run through that data table again, find that total distance, and that will give me the answer to this bonus. And that will get me the complete solve for the level. So the second time through, I saved 5 minutes. When I did this the first time, I solved it in just about 18 minutes and 40 seconds. I'll tell you what happened. So on level 5, one of the instructions specifically says, do not round any intermediate steps. To save time, I had been copying formulas from earlier levels to lower levels. And when I did an earlier level that rounded that CO2 factor for a single flight, I should have taken that rounding out for the combined flights for my level 5 model. What that ended up doing was I ended up giving 12 of those questions wrong, losing 180 points, and that is where I lost all my points for this case. But it was a real fun one, real applicable. I really enjoyed from every step of the way, every level, how it is very realistic. And it was quite fun to do. So thank you so much, Stein, for this case. Thank you so much, MEWC South Africa, for allowing us to participate. I really had a great time. Looking forward to the next one, and I hope you are too. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. I try to put out a video every week, and I hope you stay tuned for the next one. See ya. It's the XO.